Welcome back to another day of Modern Halacha. Since we're only 2 weeks away from Shavuot, the day we accepted the Torah, and one has to understand the most powerful mitzvah of the Torah is Talmud Torah. I just heard such a beautiful shmuz at the Siyum Rambam from Rabbi Lopiansky, the Rosh Hashiva of DC. He was saying that the Torah is compared to water, the Rambam says, and a mikvah is to water. So the more learning more and more often is like being more deeply immersed in the waters of knowledge and connected to Hashem. And it's a different environment, you understand? Just like if you're, the more generation, somebody's a third generation American, he's going to have more of the customs subconsciously and consciously of America. Somebody that learns Torah more becomes a citizen of the Torah. So everything about him, you understand? The more deeper and serious we are about our learning and constant about our learning. So the question is, this week's parsha says, "Im bechukosai telechu." So it's a double reason we should talk about Talmud Torah. The Torah says, if you learn Torah, you're amal in Torah. You learn Torah in a deep way that you sweat. Parenthetically, the Arizal says that when one learns, right, like we learn in the end of Pirkei Avos, Kefum Sara Agra. It's hard for us to know exactly what our reward in the next world will be, but there is one laser sunlight kind of flashing light, guiding light to teach us. The more effort, sweat, blood, tears you put in a mitzvah, the more you get. So Hashem in this week's parsha wants us to be im bechukosai telechu ve'mispasai tishmaru. It says, if you go in my commandments, walk with my commandments, and keep my commandments. It's repetitious, right? So Rashi says, shetiu amelim b'Torah. Bechukosai telechu is different than keeping the mitzvos. Bechukosai telechu is you have to sacrifice and toil to Torah, and that's what it says in Pirkei Avos. You understand that according to how deep and how much you sacrifice from Torah, that's how much reward you get for Torah. The question is, Torah is like a sea of knowledge. There's Kabbalah, there's Halacha, there's... Do you know how many shiurim there are? The shiurim of all these different Rosh Hashivas, you can learn Pilpul, right? So, in this vast sea of knowledge of Torah, what should you learn? Should you learn Mishnah? Should you learn Gemara? Should you learn Chumash? Right? So there's an interesting Gemara in Avodah Zarah, Daf Yud Tes, page 19a. It says, "Ein Adam loimed Torah ela b'ma." Rebbe teaches us, none other than the author of the oral Torah that put it all together in the Mishnah. Rebbe teaches us a person should only learn Torah where his heart wants to learn. As we learn in the beginning of Tehillim, "U'v'toiraso yehege, ki im b'toras Hashem chefso, v'torato yehege yomam v'layla." So the Rava actually reinstates Rebbe's thing, and he says, forever, la'olam, a person should learn Torah in a place where his heart desires. And from this, he learns it in the same. So the Gemara twice in Avodah Zarah says that, and this is such an important thing we always talk about, how important it is to have a Rebbe and why it's so important. Everybody, even the Balei Tshuva, Jason, this is for you. Call out to my... It's so important to be part of the yeshiva world. Because you exactly, because a lot of times what happens is, this is a very important shir, by the way, because you have a lot of people that the most such beautiful souls, but they're misguided, you understand? So you see this in Israel especially, but universally amongst a lot of the Balei Tshuva that didn't go to the yeshiva system, they're not balanced. Like they don't know any halacha, or they don't know, or they don't know any Gemara. So we're trying to understand, how do you... It's hard to understand what this Gemara means. Is our yeshiva system... Okay, the most powerful mitzvah is studying Torah, right? And it's very important that everybody should study Hilchos Talmud Torah. Does a person keep Shabbos without learning the laws of Shabbos? No. So should you pursue which mitzvah should take up most of our time in the day? The mitzvah that's the most fruitful and powerful and nuclear is studying Torah. So of course one should study the laws of Talmud Torah to know how to do it in the proper way. So we're trying to understand, how does this Gemara say that you should just learn whatever you like? So the Maharsha comes to explain that what Rebbe is saying is the topic. Now, one also has to understand one basic thing, and that is one. And I really believe what Rebbe is saying here is mitoch shelo lishma bal lishma. As Rav Shragi Neuberger also says this, for a person to get his feet wet and start learning, obviously he should learn topics that excite him, right? That's what Rebbe is saying. Because if you are totally not interested in the subject matter of learning, right? For example, look, the Shas has almost 60 different Masechtas, right? Now, unless you're truly lover of God and Torah, not every single subject there, right? Like, I must confess my sins. Sometimes when I'm learning Nazir, I'm a little bit behind in Daf Yomi. It's very difficult, right? Because it's very technical, you know? So, our goal always we always have to, I tell you one thing. Whatever you do with happiness and excitement and love, you're going to be much more successful if something's a burden, right? So this Gemara is saying is that definitely it is appropriate for a Baal Tshuva to learn something, a topic that he desires. As the Bir Halacha says this also regarding the laws of Tisha B'Av. And that's what Rashi is actually explained, that we want, when one learns, one has to be, you understand, my Rosh Hashiva said something very deep. If you're learning and you're not focused, right, you're not omul b'Torah, right? You're not putting, like in today's silly society where half of people's attention at all times is in their cell phone, that's not how you learn Gemara. Understand? You have to put your heart and soul in your learning. Right? You have to sacrifice to understand it and actually never forget it and review it, and perhaps we could talk about that in a different year. But what Rebbe's trying to tell you is there has to be a certain glue that attaches you to the learning, and that's your love of the subject. So that's definitely what you should start at. Now, why is Rava repeating it? Rava's trying to say, the Maharsha says another chiddush. He says not only are you going to be more successful and powerful in your learning if you're learning a subject that you actually enjoy and are interested in, but the question is, who are you learning from, right? Because also this goes back to Kabbalah. Different people have different personality. This is a lot of Kabbalah, psychology, right? Not everybody you connect with, not every teacher you connect with, right? A certain student will be F- with a certain yeshiva and Rebbe and style, but if he, for example, goes to Breslov, he'll become an all-star, right? It's something that we see in the Baal Tshuva and the yeshiva world also. It has to be the right connect. So there's two different elements the Gemara is saying. The Gemara, first of all, Rebbe comes and says the subject, if you want to be successful, should be a part of the Torah. That some people are totally fascinated with monetary law because they're a lawyer, so they want to learn the Torah part of the civil law. So that's wonderful. They should run with it because that's going to make them grow and that's going to make them a masmid, right? One of the greatest virtues that is the first of the 48 paths of wisdom of Torah, right? We have 40 memches kenyanim of Torah, is to be a masmid. Every free second you have to learn. That's why we have that podcast of Chizuk Talmud Torah, right? So the issue that we're trying to say is that the Gemara is teaching us two valuable things of success in learning. What should you learn? You should learn from the appropriate Rebbe that you connect with and you enjoy learning with, so you're excited. Because Rav Chaim Volozhiner says, if you learn 1 hour, besimcha, Torah, with excitement and joy, is like many, many hours that you're just learning it as a burden, right? And Rav Volbi says, when we say Berachas HaTorah, what do we say? V'ha'erev no Hashem Elokeinu. The Shulchan Aruch and Mem Zayin brings Orach Chaim that we have to say this bracha with extreme kavanah when we say the bracha of Berachas HaTorah, right after we say Moda'ani and the Rikos HaShachar. So Ha'erev now means make Torah dear in our hearts. But Ha'erev also means to mix, la'arev, right? When you throw like Kool-Aid powder. So why does Ha'erev now, to make it dear to us, why does it have the same synonym? The same word means two things. It means to mix in. So Rav Volbi says such a beautiful thing. He says, when you learn Torah with simcha, it gets mixed into your spiritual DNA and you never forget it. So that's the first part of the shir. That's how the Maharsha understands this Gemara. The Torah is like a sea of knowledge. Where should I start, Rebbe? Right? The answer is learn from a Rebbe that gets you excited. And learn the topic that makes you excited, right? Now, the Seder Yaakov has a different explanation of this Gemara, and he says that the problem, there becomes another problem to this Maharsha, though, and that is, especially for the Balei Tshuva, really for anybody, that is, let's say you want to learn A. You're fascinated by Sanhedrin, right? I have this issue with a lot of people a lot of times. The question is, you want to learn subject A, but it's more important and appropriate for you to learn subject B, because you need to know the basics. B stands for the basics. So like, you need to know how to put on tefillin, you need to know how to keep Shabbos, right? So how does that come into here? So what's the reasoning behind that? So he says that so the question is, Rava states that even in a battle of his own will, he should only learn what he really wants to learn. So he says, even in that case, see, the problem is here, we people are very independent, right? The whole reason that Hashem took us out of Egypt is for free. It's very hard to force people to do something. So he says that what Rava is trying to add is, for every person should only learn, indicating even if one who gives the other option to himself, which means that it may be important if you are more interested in learning A, right? But really B is more important for you, then what you need to do internally and with your Rebbe is to create an excitement and understand that this is also important. But in the end of the day, obviously you need to know the basics, because we have to keep the Torah. Torah is not a salad bar, right? And you only can't keep the stuff that's your favorites, right? But it just comes out in the end of the day, you're only going to be successful in what you actually are the most excited about, right? Something that you're not excited about is just, and as a teacher, Baruch Hashem, from the summer I was 13 years old, I was a summer Rebbe, learning Rebbe. You see it. It's especially, it doesn't matter the age. In the end of the day, I mean, that's the genius of the ultimate Rebbe. That he'll make any topic interesting, and he'll be able to bring, this whole tapestry of Torah, right? The whole A to Z of Torah, and fit it into like a puzzle of every part. So that was the greatness of Rab Meir. You understand? The Rab Meir was able to talk 1/3 halacha, 1/3 mashal, right? Parables, 1/3. drash. But in the end of the day, a person needs to have a solid foundation. But his growth is only going to come, his hasmada, right? Him becoming a true Talmud Chacham is only going to come where his heart is in it, right? You know what I'm saying? In the end of the day, if your heart is not in it, you're not going to be successful in it. It just, especially in today's society, especially when you're not in the yeshiva system. Now, there's a third opinion based on the Shevet Musar, and that is the Arizal brings a fascinating idea, and that is that it could be one of the reasons that you have a specific love for this part of Torah, let's say Kabbalah, is because in your last Gilgul, your last reincarnation, you didn't learn it. You understand? So you subconsciously, your neshama knows this, and that means that you should indeed concentrate on this subject. And the Shevet HaMusar, which was one of the great Sephardic Kabbalists, and he says, if other people make fun of you, you shouldn't shun away, because it could be the reason why you were reincarnated in this specific life, in this specific stuff, is because in the last previous times you were in the world, you've learned all the Gemara, right? So the Seder Yaakov is a little bit bothered by this, Shevet HaMusar, because we want to make a big disclaimer here and say that the amount of damage I've done when people don't have strong foundation is very, very dangerous, right? So, for example, you'll have certain Baalei Tshuva learn Musar 3 hours a day, right? That is not what we're talking about here. Everybody has to understand one simple thing. And that is that there's a basic amount of knowledge before one has permission to learn Kabbalah, right? But once you have learned a lot of Shas and you understand clearly Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, Maharsha, right? Now you have this unquenchable thirst for Kabbalah. The way to understand this Gemara is where does that thirst come from? It could be, see, because there's a very, very fascinating Arizal that seems to contradict what we're talking about. The Arizal says that there's 4 parts to Torah. Pardes, Pshat, the simple meaning of Torah, the Drash, the Remez, and the Sod, and the Kabbalah. Every neshama has a certain capacity to understand these 4 parts of Torah. You understand? Unless you were able to tap into your full potential of understanding these 4 levels of Torah, you're going to have to become reincarnated. So what does that mean? So it says, this is not a contradiction to what we said, that one should learn. It says like this, there's 2 different people. A person doesn't have a general fascination with a certain part of Torah, right? So what is the right way he should do? He should try to learn everything to its maximum, right? He should learn as much halacha and Gemara to his maximum, right? That's the general. But this specific person has an unquenchable fascination and deep thing, and he doesn't feel fulfilled, right? In the end of the day, right? The whole goal of this year is trying to say that there's a certain aspect to say that unless you're happy in your learning, the learning is not going to be successful. So he says that depends on the person. If the person is generally coming to ask us for guidance, then there's a clear protocol. What's the protocol for what you should learn? And this is the review of the class. You should learn. Definitely, somebody should learn the way the yeshiva system learns. You should learn Chumash, you should learn Mishnayos, you should learn Hilchot Shabbat. Like the Rosh Hashiva that's here, we have the honor of being here with us. The Rabbi Yonasan Ivashit says somebody, the Mishnah Berurah brings this in his introduction, his Akdama to Mishnah Berurah, Hilchot Shabbos. He says somebody that hasn't reviewed all the laws of Shabbat, I repeat, somebody that has not reviewed all the laws of Shabbat can be guaranteed that on any given Shabbat he's going to be desecrating Shabbat, right? So definitely all these Bali Tshuva that spend hours upon hours, I mean, it breaks my heart. It's very sad. And that's the thing that it's sad that they don't go to a real yeshiva to see the real system. Can a person have all his food to be chocolate and taffy, or does he have to eat 3 normal meals a day to get proper nourishment? The right way to learn is you have to have a strong foundation, right? So you have to know Gemara, Rashi, the 5 books of Torah, right? No basic Chumash Rashi, no Mishnah, know how to learn a Shulchan Aruch, learn how to open a Yalkut Yosef, right? By the way, if this class is about what should I learn, and oh my God, this makes me so upset. I know so many people personally that they love to learn, but they don't know how to learn. You understand? Which means they cannot understand any given subject unless they have an English translation. They just can't open a Shulchan Aruch. Or let's say it's Shalut Teshuvot Yachavedat, because they don't, right? So that's why we need yeshiva. That's what my Rebbe, Rav Sheftel Neuberger Zatzal said. He says, why in yeshiva do we do so much pilpul, right? And we go deep and deep and deep. We could cover so much more ground. Why not, if a person went from high school through his 4 or 5 years of Beis Medrash, why shouldn't he finish all of Kol HaTorah Kula or all of Shas? Or, right? Why is the yeshiva system the way it is? Because you need to learn how to learn. A person that cannot learn any subject unless he has an art scroll is handicapped. You understand? So, it's very, very important that to be successful, there's no question. The majority of your time, according to all opinions, and that's what the Gemara is saying, has to be something you have a passion and interest in that learning, right? And according to the last idea we brought, Kabbalistically could be that's why you're reincarnated. That's why you really want to learn that. But again, we are students of the Ramchal. We just had Mesilas Yesharim. We believe in Shleimus also, which means if somebody knows nothing about Hilchot Shabbat and all he knows is Musar, right? Or he knows nothing about Gemara, or he knows nothing about Mishnah, he knows nothing about the Yesodis Hamunah, the 13 principles of faith, right? So, in my humble opinion, the way to summarize the end of this class is that definitely one could put the bulk of his time into what he enjoys the most, but at the other time he has to have a secondary program to make sure, and especially any Rebbe that's not following that protocol, to make sure that his students, first of all, know how to learn, won't be handicapped with the English book the whole time, and also have the basics of the laws of kosher, the laws of Shabbat, the laws of Gemara. I'm sorry. In the end of the day, Rav Yaakov Hillel always screams about this. He said that even the Sephardic rabbis that only created a system that people only know halacha, and there's no study of Gemara, there's no depth, are going to have to answer in front of Hashem. So us Sephardim, the learning of halacha is totally paramount. But in the ideal world, as a final summary, is we need to follow the yeshiva system. And not the Ashkenazi yeshiva system, the Sephardi system, which is we learn Gemara, Rashi, Tosfot, like we do in our Thursday night shiurim. Then we bring the poskim. What does the Mishnah Berurah say about it? What does the poskim say about it, right? As we hope everybody uses their time wisely and is successful in their learning and is happy in their learning, and definitely the greatest pleasure is not anything physical. The greatest pleasure is learning, because you know Hashem, then you know why you're here, and we hope everybody will be very successful in remembering their learning. Amen. Amen.